Okay. So welcome everyone to Speaking of Sexuality, our bi-monthly talks where we're really diving into sexuality, intimacy, relationships, and discussing different topics, and basically just creating a space here together to explore things that you might not get to explore in your everyday life and your everyday friendships. Um, so this week we're talking about reawakening your sexual desire and offering some accessible and like applicable medicine for like reawakening your libido and reconnecting with your sex drive in a way that feels authentic and real for you. So I'm here today with Cleo King and we're in Morocco and it feels so exciting to be here, Cleo. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I
Yes.
can introduce myself. Hi, everyone. I feel really honored to be joining Ria today. I'm Cleo King, as Ria already said. I'm a pleasure and embodiment coach, and I'm working with sensuality. So, really, this energy of aliveness, experiencing life through the senses, connecting to how we perceive the world, and really integrating sexuality as something, you know, integral and natural into our day-to-day lives and into our way of being in the world. Um, I have, yeah, trained in sex and relationship therapy, in breath work, art therapy. So I'm drawing from a lot of different sources to make my practice as holistic as possible. And this is also why I'm working one-on-one with clients and I'm giving workshops and doing courses. So yeah, we felt like this might be a beautiful option for us to talk about libido together. And so I'm really grateful and excited to be here.
Mm.
Mm.
Thank you, Cleo. What a wealth of knowledge. I feel very honored to be chatting with you today about this very juicy topic. So, yeah, just as we open the space and begin here today, just inviting you to really get comfortable. Um, Sometimes when we're talking about sexuality and we're exploring these topics, it can be super sensitive, you know. There might be different parts of us that find this really exciting. There might be parts of us that find this challenging. And one of the things that I really like to encourage you to do in this talk, but in your whole life, is really look after yourself. You know, if you notice that you're getting activated or you notice that we're talking about a topic that feels challenging, take care of yourself. Take time and space, take some breaths, resource yourself, um, and make sure that you're comfortable whilst we're going through this. So yeah, it's a real honor to be here. So really welcoming you here, whether you're watching this live or on the recording. It's yeah, I think it's going to be a juicy one. Amazing. Yeah.
Shall we start with an opening, starting like
Did you ask a question, a full question then?
I was just feeling into
Okay, it's like
what we want to get.
curiosity.
Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, my name is Ria Hope, and I'm a sexuality and intimacy practitioner, conscious kinkster, and energy worker. And I've been also doing this work for a long time. So, yeah, we've got a lot of knowledge to share with you today, I feel. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, should we start with a practice?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So, we're going to start with a little practice today that's going to help to situate this conversation in to your experience. So, find a way to make yourself comfortable, and you're welcome to just close your eyes or you can lower your gaze. And just start by giving your body a little wriggle, maybe your shoulders and your hands. Maybe giving your jaw a stretch. Oh, just noticing how you're arriving this morning in your body, maybe in your mind. And then allowing your awareness to turn into your inner world, your inner landscape. Maybe letting out a sigh through the mouth on the exhale. Slowing down, even if it's just a little. And let's take a few breaths now down into the pelvis, into the hips, down into the lower centers of your body. If the hips or the pelvis don't feel like a safe place to be, you can just focus on your lower belly. But just allowing your breath to travel down the spine into the pelvic bowl. And on the exhale, imagining that your breath is pushing out from your pelvis, almost like expanding this space with your awareness on the exhale. So inhaling the breath down the spine, into the pelvis, and on the exhale, imagining the breath expanding this space, like pushing your hip bones a little further apart. And then let's do the same with the heart center. So taking some breaths down into the heart, deep into the heart on the inhale, on the exhale, imagining that breath expanding out from the chest. Maybe there's some movement, doesn't have to be static. Welcoming in life through the breath, welcome life force energy through this practice and expanding it through your field on the exhale. Noticing how it feels to be in your heart space today. Does it feel more open than your hips? Does it feel more contracted? And then let's take some breaths into the head center. So if you follow the point between your brows into the center of your brain, and then take some breaths up into the center of the brain. And then on the exhale, expanding this breath out into the field. When we come up into these upper centers of the body, things can get a little bit more, we go up towards the heavens. So making sure that if you're noticing that you're floating away, staying connected to the base as well, staying connected to the hips, seeing if you can hold that dual awareness. Maybe you notice your breath changing a little. Maybe it gets a little gentler. Like almost on that exhale, like clearing away anything that's ready to go. Like this center in our head can get very crammed. So on the exhale, almost creating some more space for our thoughts, for our intellect, for our insights to have room there. And then scanning your whole body, all the way from your toes, all the way up to the crown. Just becoming aware of all of you. And if there's places that feel a little harder to sense in on, it's totally fine. Just noticing that as well. And I just then want you to ask your body the question, where is my sexual energy today? Almost like you're asking your body to show you, rather than using your mind to try and think about it. Ask the body and see what the body responds. Maybe you notice it in your genitals. Maybe you notice it in your heart. Maybe it's somewhere that you are surprised by, tips of your fingers or your right shoulder. And if nothing arises, just stay with the question, stay with the inquiry. We're not forcing the body to have an answer, we're allowing the body to show us. And even if it's not able to show us or it doesn't show us, that's also an answer of some flavor. Maybe it feels a little harder to reach today. But if there is somewhere clear in your body, I almost like to think of this imagery of like if your sexual energy was like a wellspring coming up from the earth. what quality does this energy have today? Does it feel big and roaring like a waterfall? Does it feel like trickling, like babbling brook? Does it have a texture or a color? And like we did in the start, maybe you can take your breath there if you want to expand it. You can use your inhale to breathe into the space and your exhale to expand it. It's not often that we get in touch with our sexual energy just for curiosity, not because we want anything out of it, for it to perform for us or for it to give us some sort of feeling or sensation. We're just here to be with. And if it feels too big, if it feels like stretching you, you can breathe into the space and use the exhale to bring it back in. Sometimes I like to imagine breathing into it so big that it like covers my whole body in a bubble, so I can just be with my own sexuality. And then as you're ready, letting that imagery fall away, but you can stay with the sensation throughout this talk as much as you want to. And just thanking the body for whatever it brought today. And then gently blinking your eyes open, maybe having a little wriggle. Hmm. And then feel free if you want to write in the chat maybe what you felt in that practice. He's coming closer. Maybe where you noticed it, if that felt easy or really difficult. If there was any colors or textures, if there was emotions that came up, was there excitement or grief? Also, if you don't want to write in the chat, you could just make some reflections on paper.
It's always so interesting when I ask myself this question when I do this practice, how surprised I am every time where my sexual energy is. And like sometimes I'm like, oh, what?
Hello.
Okay. Apparently you're here. And I love it.
Yeah, where did
Yeah.
you feel yours today?
In
your
my mouth.
Love that.
Yeah.
And how did it feel for you?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also very fitting, I feel, to us doing this talk today. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, beautiful.
While you were guiding through it, did you feel anything as well? Or you were more focused on guiding?
When I tune into the question now, it's like what I've noticed since doing this practice. It's like these two lines of energy. My nipples aren't a place that I've really felt much arousal throughout my life, but since doing this practice, I've noticed that these two lines of energy come up towards my nipples, and it's a very like it's like quite an enlivening feeling that
Yeah.
keeps me, but it's like kind of on the outside of my field. It feels
Mm-hmm.
very like, ooh, stretchy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. It's also nice because it's in the heart center.
Yeah. Okay. So
A little
someone said I had a, yeah,
vulnerability.
vulnerability is,
Mm.
yeah, very normal. Pleasant warmth in the belly. Felt so good with some arousal in the genitals.
Beautiful.
Yeah, some
Grief.
grief.
Yeah. I resonate with that a lot as well.
So my sexual energy is in my head. Yeah.
Mm.
How many of us experience our sexuality just through the head alone, right? Even
Yeah.
if it's just in our fantasies or in ideas of what we think is sexy. We'll probably talk about this, but it's not so taught that we access sexuality actually through our sensation.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's through the ideas of what's going on, you know?
Yeah. And someone also says through it was in your throat, which is really beautiful because the throat and the pelvis are so connected. Like so many times when we have restrictions in our throat, that means we have restrictions in our pelvis. It's like a it's the same structure, one on the top and one on the bottom. So yeah.
Yeah, and the throat is such a huge, it's such a huge part of our
Pleasure.
sexual lives. It's like how we express our desire,
Yeah.
how we say to someone, this is what I want, which can feel super vulnerable.
And where the sounds of pleasure come out as well.
Mm. Yeah, and someone said that sexuality felt quite hard to locate this morning, some inner resistance and vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a great practice. You can do it every day. It takes 5 minutes. Slow down, take some breaths, ask your body. It's really good for creating this mind-body connection, um, which is such an important aspect of increasing sexual energy and increasing this connection with the erotic flow of life. So
Mm.
beautiful. Thank you all so much for coming along for the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what are we here to do today, Cleo?
Well, we're gonna talk about libido.
Mm,
We're gonna talk a little bit about well, how we will talk about libido, because we realized yesterday in preparing this talk how vast this topic also is and how many different interpretations there are. So we're going to give you a little bit of a definition of our idea of libido and how we're going to talk about it today.
mm,
And we're going to go a little bit into why you would have low libido, how that can happen, the different reasons for it, and then kind of shift our focus and attention more onto yeah, how we can reconnect with our libido, how we can also bring more aliveness to this part of ourselves, our sexual selves, and yeah, connect again, right?
mm, definitely.
That's what we're
That's
doing.
what we're doing. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, because my inspiration for this talk was I put a little poll on my Instagram the other day asking people, do you wish you had more or less sexual
Hmm.
energy? And I think 89% of people wished that they had more. And it really got this thing going in my head of like, wow, what do we do when we feel really disconnected? And how do we actually start to make reconnections again? And how do we find the path back to a sexual expression that feels really authentic to us? So, yeah. So, when we're talking about libido, I guess at its most basic core, our libido is how much or little we want to engage in sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that that was the. I want to
I
kind of be here.
well, and I would also say how connected we feel to our just our sexual energy, like our, some people call it life force energy, some people call it vital energy, others creative energy. It's just meant to describe this energy that sits in our roots, in this place in our pelvis, that really lets us meet life in its fullness. And it's energy that just exists, that is there, and then it is for us to decide how we want to use it. So I would say that libido also is very much related to, do I feel connected to this energy inside myself? And then I
Mm.
can use it for sex, and but I can also use it for other things.
Mm. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think that distinction it's quite subtle what you're saying. And I think it's something that we're not really taught about is that we can feel so turned on and not need to do anything with it. There's this huge, like, belief or pressure in the modern world that if we feel aroused, we must do something with it. We have to get rid of it, or we have to, oh, it's annoying if we feel like we have a high libido and we can't do anything about it, right? And I think that's such a big part of this process of reconnecting with libido and with the juiciness of life is sort of deconstructing the idea of sexuality, really, and how we engage with sexuality.
Yeah, and how it is, like, as it is such a shamed part of ourselves, and we have learned to only use our sexual energy, or mainly use our sexual energy for sex or self-pleasure or masturbation. It's really beautiful to also, yeah, reframe it into something that is just, has first and foremost to do with your own connection to your like sensual sexual aliveness and how alive you feel, and this energy will naturally radiate out, but it is your decision, basically, what you want to do with it and how you want to engage with it. And we're not taught that really.
Mm. Yeah, and I think there's this really important piece that's like, oh, we think we have a low libido if we don't just want to fuck all the time. Like, oh no, that I must have a low libido if I don't always want to be, if I'm not super horny all the time. And I think that oftentimes we'll talk about this in a little bit, but about the different types of desire, it's not always that we might have a type of desire that is spontaneous, where it's like, okay, I know that I'm connected to my libido because I just want to fuck and I want to feel connected and I want to do all these sensual practices just because I spontaneously want to do them. Opposed to a different type of desire, which is more responsive, where instead of just waiting to feel horny or aroused or connected, we create an environment in which that can then emerge. So it's almost like we engage with our sensuality or our sexuality to boost that juiciness. It's almost like approaching it from a different angle. If that does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And I also just want to add, because we're still talking about how we're going to talk about libido today, that we're really open to your questions when it comes to like more specific things that you have, questions that you want to ask around libido, but we're going to approach it from a more like, libido is something that every individual person can feel and cultivate and has, and it's different for everyone as well. And of course there are situations in long-term relationships, for example, where it is where certain things apply a little more than when you are not in a relationship, for example. And we're going to go a little bit into like self-pleasure versus partnered pleasure. And at the same time, we are both of the opinion and mindset that libido is first and foremost something that has to do with yourself, and whether you bring it into a relationship or whether you bring it into the relationship with yourself, it's a very similar approach.
mm, yummy.
Mm.
So, what are some reasons then? Let's talk about some reasons why we might feel disconnected from our libido and reasons why we might be here listening to this talk today.
I'm just gonna quickly check the message.
Yeah. So, there's so many reasons why we might feel disconnected from our libido. Ranging from, more physical elements to more mental elements to things from our past, skills or tools that we might or might not have. So yeah, shall we go through the list?
Yeah,
Let us.
let us.
Let us.
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, there are so many different reasons. I think one of the I'll just start with the one that I think is the most interesting to me always, or the most surprising, let's say. Um, One of the reasons I would say, and there are so many, obviously. Sorry, now I'm diverting, but
Go ahead.
no, like mental health plays a really important role. As we already said, like traumatic or not beautiful experiences in the past, how you experience sex, stress is such an incredible factor. And I think this is kind of like one of the things that I experience the most in my practice with my clients is how used everyone is to stress, and that it's just like a given that we cannot change. And it does have something to do also with, are you able to prioritize, for example, pleasure and sex in your life? Are you able to look at what you need for to feel aroused, for example? And are you able to reduce the stress in some way? And usually we are. We're just very, very used to stressful circumstances. Like the job will be stressful, or our days, our week will be stressful. It's just a given in our society because we all have to work and we all have to earn money. And so to slow down and take this time and really shift the focus, that is definitely one of the factors that I am just met with a lot.
I mean, it's so true, isn't it? It's like if you see sex as something that's gonna like take your time in a way that's negative. Like, oh my God, well, I can't do that because then I'm not going to have time to do this. And then I'm not going to have time to do that. And when you think about sex or you think about self-pleasure, it's not something that feels nourishing and resourceful. Then you're not going to make time to connect with it, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
like a job.
yeah, like, how many of us feel like, oh, what a chore, or I'll just slap this in at the end of my day, you know? And it's like, actually, when we approach sexuality, it's really important that we create time and space for it. But to want to prioritize it, we have to feel like it's going to be good for us, right? And that's the bit that we really miss out on, that we don't often spend time and energy or have the resources or the tools or the education, which is also why we're here, to know what would it actually look like for me to create a nourishing relationship with my sexuality that feels beneficial, that I actually want to make time and space for, that will help me feel less stressed, that will help me feel less tight in my body, that will reconnect me to the pleasure and the juices of life. How
Yeah.
many, I mean, it's so rare that people have even had that experience with sexuality. And maybe some of you here are feeling, yeah, actually, I've never experienced that. I've never experienced a nourishing relationship with sexuality that feeds me and juices me up rather than depletes me or makes me feel ashamed. And in that way, it's like, oh, why would I want to give energy to something that I feel so shameful about,
Yeah.
And I would say most people have a relationship like that with sexuality. So,
Yeah, and then it's also easier for it to say like, oh, I don't, I really don't have the time. How am I supposed to make time for it? If you haven't had any, like if you haven't had that reframe or those pleasurable experiences when it comes to your own sex and feeling it like as something nourishing, of course you will say like this is just another to do on my list, or I don't have time, or I'm not feeling it. Yeah, it totally makes sense. And at the same time, I want to speak to things like nutrition, um, is one really important factor. Like, what do we eat? Do we feel sexy in our body? If, like, we've just had a huge pizza. I mean, some people feel really sexy when they've just had a huge pizza. So
sexy pizza party.
celebrating you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like how do you nourish your body? Do you feel connected to your body? Do you feel sexy in your body, however it looks like? Um, this is one really important factor. Do you take any medication like that just changes your system? How are your hormones? Are they balanced, or is there some disbalance in your hormones? And especially for people with wombs or people that are bleeding, just respecting the cycle as well and knowing that there might be different phases that your libido is higher and lower, or it just shows up differently as well.
Yeah, the
Yes.
same for people with penises. It's like the hormonal cycle is very much like in the morning, very high, and then gradually dips throughout the day. So also bearing that in mind, it's like, oh, where am I hormonally more suited to engage with a pleasure practice right now? If you're someone who bleeds, it's like maybe ovulation time for you. Maybe it's more like premenstrual time. It's like to have an awareness of where do I feel more connected to my sexuality and sensuality hormonally, but just generally in life, what makes me feel yummy?
Yeah.
Like, is there a type of music? Is there a setting? Is there a fabric? Is there a smell? Is there a setting? Is there a partner? What is it that makes me feel like I'm ready to engage with this part of myself? Another thing that's really impactful for our libido can be if we have past trauma, if we've had a history of sexual abuse or sexual assault, it can really complicate our relationship with sexuality and how we engage with it and whether our body reads it as something that is not safe. So if that's something that you feel like is related to you, it's like I would always recommend to find some support for that. Like find a professional who can really guide you on this journey one on one, because it's such a unique part of our journey. Our sexuality is so vulnerable and it's so unique. It really is, that having someone who can work with you and your specific experiences is just a real gift.
Yeah. Yeah, and really going slow and allowing yourself to see your own like pleasure and access to pleasure not as something necessarily what we know as like sex, you know, it doesn't have to um even be sex. It can like just exploring, allowing yourself to explore your own pleasure in a non-sexual context can be really rich and beautiful for anyone, but especially for people that have experienced some sort of sexual abuse or trauma in the past.
Mm.
And another thing that I want to talk to, because this is something that I really am like personally also affected by, is chronic pain and chronic illnesses. That will affect naturally your desire and your libido because you know, dealing with chronic pain, I have chronic back pain for years already, and sometimes it just hits you out of nowhere and you don't, and you're just, you kind of have to surrender to it. You don't have much choice, and it can be really a process of grief. It can be really frustrating also because you want to be like, especially I don't know, me, I feel like I'm young. I shouldn't be feeling, you know, pain all of a sudden when I want to be all juiced up and having sex, for example. And so really again slowing down and allowing myself to feel what can bring me pleasure in a moment of pain, for example. And going back into this reframing that you were talking about, Ria, of like what does pleasure look like to me? And maybe, yeah, maybe let's say pleasure instead of sex, because it might be easier to see it as something broader. Like I can find so much pleasure in eating my oranges in the morning, and like how can I really devour my orange? And it has something to do with the focus and the attention, the presence that I bring to this specific thing. And the same goes for like sexual desire, right? It's about the presence that I bring to this very moment. How present can I be? How slow can I be? And what does it change for my experience of sex or pleasure?
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, it's such an important distinction, isn't it? And I think that it brings me on to this exploration of like masturbation versus self-pleasure. And so often when we think about engaging with our sexuality, it's like, yeah, I've got to want to masturbate all the time and always want to have sex in a very specific way that's going to be penis and vagina penetration. We're going to all orgasm. And there's so much expectation that we can place onto what our sexuality should look like. And I think that often when I've worked with couples in the past, there's been this, if there has been this aspect of mismatched desires or differing desires, oftentimes it's because when one of the partners is thinking about sex, they're thinking about this very specific part of sex. It's like, I'm imagining penis and vagina penetration, and your body's like, well, I don't know if I want that, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. So it's almost like slowing down and almost like pulling back the parts of our brain that whiz off into thinking that sex has to look like a specific thing. Because this distinction between masturbation and self-pleasure, I think, is a really important one, because when we engage in self-pleasure, it doesn't always have to include the genitals, right? I always see self-pleasure more like a meditation practice. I'm going to make my space really beautiful. I'm going to carve out enough time that I'm not rushing, and I'm going to start to be with my body in a way that feels authentic. I'm going to start tuning in. I'm going to wake my hands up. I'm going to make sure that I'm warm. I'm going to make sure that I'm comfortable. And then I'm going to ask the question, where do you want to be touched?
Oh.
Whoa. And then I'm going to allow myself to start exploring my body. And when it feels pleasurable, I'm going to stay there. And if emotion arises, I'm going to let it. Even the word self-pleasure is almost a little bit misleading, because it's like, it's more like a meditation practice. It's not always that it's going to feel super pleasurable,
Yeah.
because we're deconstructing this script. Okay, I'm going to go towards my genitals. I'm going to touch them like this. I'm going to think about the sexiest thing that I could possibly think about. Then I'm going to come, and then I'm going to get on with my day. Right? It's like, that's actually, it's also fine to do that, and there's no shame in engaging with ourselves like that. But if that's the only way you're engaging with yourself and your body,
Mm.
you might just be missing out on something that's a little more responsive
Yeah.
to what your body is sharing with you rather than what your mind thinks that you should be feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, and allowing yourself to also meet you in this place. Like, how often do we actually spend time with ourselves? Like, not in the sense that we're alone and we might be watching something, or even, I mean, journaling is a really nice practice to do with yourself. But this moment of like really meeting yourself, like almost like a date, you know, you're you're meeting yourself as if you are having sex with a lover. And coming and saying like, hey, as Ria said, like, where do you want to be touched? Like, how are you feeling today? How slow do you want me to go? How fast? Are you feeling playful? Are you feeling
Mm.
vulnerable? Like really going into this space. And I know for a lot of people that is so hard. And it was really hard for me in the beginning as well. And now I'm so grateful because I can also show up in my relationships and my with my lovers in a different way. Um, because there's trust, like my body trusts me to be there and do the things that feel good to me in the moment. And yeah, again, moving away from the word pleasure in that sense, because it can be like it can feel good to cry, it can feel good to feel your grief, it can feel good to just hold yourself for like 10 minutes. And you can start with 10 minutes, you can start with 5 minutes of just this time, setting aside this time to dedicate this moment just to be with yourself and like celebrate and be there and honor your body that can tell you so much about what you need when it comes to your pleasure that isn't necessarily the sexual script that we all know.
Mm. Oh, just inviting everyone to take a breath with that and just let that sink in somewhere. Feel free to write in the chat if you're here, just any words that you're noticing, any reflections. If this is like, yeah, this is amazing. If it feels like totally foreign.
Mhm.
I think this is I think this is what I would say is the most important part of engaging with your libido and your sexuality in any way, is to create time and space to actually get to know yourself and to be in respect and relationship with your own body, because we really don't have a lot of experiences of that. We're not taught to prioritize it, definitely. And in sex, oftentimes we have experiences where we don't know what we want, the other person doesn't know what we want. We're following some sort of sexual script that means that we're actually oftentimes jolted out of our self connection. So we end up having sex in a state where we're like, actually, I'm not sure I'm liking this. I'm not sure if I'm having a good time. I don't know if I'm feeling pleasure, and I don't quite know what to do about it. So, of course, when I hear that in myself, it's like, well, why would we want to? Why would we want to do that?
Yeah.
You know?
And that is also especially something in like longer term relationships where you're past the honeymoon phase where you always want to have sex. And this idea of like it always looks the same. Like you know your partner, so you know the moves, your partner knows you, so they know the moves, and you're kind of in this it always looks the same. It's always the same, and it might take about 20 minutes, but then it's over and it's just the space and the dedication to it. And also thinking about this is something that I actually do a lot in my practice, and um that I give clients like as a little homework is to really write down and feel into what is your accelerator and what is your brake, basically. Like when you think of your libido as a car. So all of the things that are accelerating your libido, like I don't know, maybe the setting of a beautiful space. Maybe you're a sensual person and you really enjoy like nice smells or music, your favorite music. You can make like a playlist for your libido. And whenever you hear it, and maybe listen to some nice music or take a bath or whatever it is. Or the family dinner table is not my space. Like that's a break, um, break moment for me. I'm not going to feel aroused at the family dinner table. And like just getting aware and becoming more aware of these things so that you can, because a lot of people I think are more and more thinking about, oh, what does turn me on? But we're not thinking about what turns me off a lot, and having like this, oh, okay, so the space is set, the music is perfect, the person that is in front of me or myself is wonderful. Why am I not in the mood? And then being like, oh, I have the list of breaks, and actually one of those things is very active right now, so how can I be with that? Like using this as a reflective practice to also go into, Ria, what you said about reframing um your idea of sex and what you really need, because there's not one way that libido has to look like. There's not one way that sex has to look like.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. And someone's just asked the question about being a single mom and being in perimenopause and that
Mm.
ability and that impacting the ability to access pleasure. And I just really want to speak to this because I think being a parent is like a whole spiritual journey, that impacts every aspect of our life, our relationship with our bodies, our relationship with our service, like how much we're touched or not touched.
Hmm.
It's a whole reframe of the bodies that we have and how we use them. And I just really want to honor that. It's such a huge life shift, both coming into menopause and also having children, that requires a big reframe of like, okay, now what's going to bring me pleasure? And now what's available to me in the way that still feels accessible. Like, yeah, so much of the tantric lineage is centered around this like non-dual aspect that we can find pleasure and we can find God and we can find union in whatever we're doing. Some things
Mm.
arguably are easier than others, but it's like, can we pour this presence into whatever that we're doing so that we touch in with this juiciness of life, right? But I also think that creating time just to be with yourself is also so important. So if that's available to have the resource or the support to just have half an hour to yourself, it's like you really deserve that
Yes.
minimum,
Yeah.
So it's almost seeing this as like part of the nourishment that you need to find out
Mhm.
what pleasure means to you. If the landscape of pleasure has shifted so drastically,
Mm.
you need to learn the new landscape, you
Yeah.
know? So again, I
Yeah.
think this quality of experimentation is so important because if we're going into it thinking, right, I'm going to feel really pleasurable, I'm going to do the pleasure practice and it's going to have an orgasm, it's like we
Mm.
we miss out on the experiment of it. It's like, I'm going to see how I feel about this. Lower the stakes.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if this works for me. And then I'm going to make my little notes and get my little scientist hat on. I'm going to figure out what this new landscape is.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, you said that really beautifully. It's so
Thank you.
true.
Yeah. I'm
Mm.
just so conscious of the fact that my battery's nearly run out on my laptop.
How did that
I don't
happen?
know. All the juice. Should be okay for now. Beautiful. So,
So,
yeah, that's such an important one because we're really talking now about like what do we do about it if we have low
yeah.
libido and we want to re-engage with it. And I think that we've sort of touched on this, but it's a good one to just drill in down on because when we allow ourselves to start to develop a practice like this, where we are going to start to get to know ourselves and be curious about what pleasure looks like, to deconstruct this framework that we're moving towards an orgasm and we're going to go straight towards the genitals, to deconstruct that, it is hard.
Yeah.
And it just does take a lot of patience. Like, I almost see them as two different things. It's like I have different types of self-pleasure. One is like, okay, I want to go towards my genitals and I want to have an orgasm. Great, that's one type of doing, that's one way of doing it. The other type is the self-pleasure where we create the scene and we set the scene. And for this, often for me, it's like to be patient enough to allow my body to show me and tell me what it needs. It's sometimes quite jarring
Yeah.
because I'll be following a thread of pleasure and I'm like, oh my God. And then my brain's like, we should go towards the genitals. We should go to, yeah, this is gonna feel so good. And then I do. My body's like,
Or
doesn't feel good anymore.
yeah, or you're being really slow and you're like, oh, this feels really nice, just touching my arms, and then it's like, I need to buy bananas. And do not forget to buy bananas. And it's like it is like meditating.
Yeah.
Like your mind will go places,
Yeah.
and to come back and be present with yourself, like whether your mind is telling you to like go to the genitals, get it over with,
Yeah.
or your mind goes like other places and thinks about all of the to-do lists. Like this is, yeah, it's
It
challenging.
just is challenging. And I just wanted to say it again because it's
Yeah.
like, it's not always comfortable. This one where it's like, okay, I'm going to think about the sexiest thing that I know and I'm going to touch my genitals in this way. I'm going to have an orgasm. In some way, it's easier.
Yeah.
It's more convenient. It's like having a McDonald's. It might not be the best for me all the time, but it's really yummy. And sometimes it's convenient and it helps me to feel nourished for a moment.
Yeah.
But if that was the only thing I was doing, I would miss out on the depth and the self-knowledge that the other thing is able to offer, you know. So patience and like perseverance, like stick with it. Remember, have an intention. I did a previous whole class on self-pleasure. It's on my YouTube if you want to watch it, which gives you a whole framework for how to do this. Um, but a nice one is just have an intention. I'm doing this to connect with my libido.
Mm.
Whatever it is, you know, just write it down. I'm doing this self-pleasure practice to reconnect with my sexuality.
Yeah.
Ah.
And I also, just to add to that, like this whole idea of reframing and not this letting go of this goal-oriented approach when it comes to your own pleasure and just experiencing pleasure that can be applied to obviously everything in your day-to-day life. Like you can, as I said before, like you can integrate a pleasurable approach to eating your food, to cooking, to working out, just by inviting like some curiosity and playfulness into your practice, and like just allowing yourself to maybe make sounds or move your body a little bit or be like a little
Mhm.
cheeky. And it doesn't have to lead to anything. So I think when we're thinking about libido, we're also always thinking about specifically wanting to have sex, and basically like higher libido leads to wanting more sex, and then whether this is available to us or not with other people at least, that is still a different question. But I think if you think about libido also as something that it's just your own aliveness, like your connection to your aliveness, and whether it leads you to wanting sex, that is like up to you. But to nourish this aliveness and this energy within you through like making your cooking more pleasurable, through making brushing your teeth more pleasurable, like all of the little moments that you have throughout the day, inducing it with pleasure, because that is very much like something that you have the power to do. You don't
Mhm.
even need to set time aside because you're doing these things anyways, and allowing yourself to do that, and this way just feeling it and then going from there and directing it in whatever way you want.
Yeah, and I think that when we like look at this specifically through a relational lens, like if we're in a relationship where we feel like we have a really low libido or we don't feel like we want to connect with our partners or that desire for sex has really dropped down, again, I would apply these same questions like, am I having the type of sex that I actually enjoy? Or is it that I'm feeling in some way
Mm.
pressured to show up for sex? Like, is it that I feel like I am responsible for someone else's sexual desire? Do I feel ashamed if I don't want to have the same type of sex or the same regularity of sex? We have to be really careful where these conditions and these dynamics can come in and impact our connection with pleasure. Because if we're feeling pressured, if we're feeling unsafe, if we're feeling in pain, it's really hard to connect to pleasure.
Yeah.
It's really hard to connect to that openness that's required for that juice to flow.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, beautiful.
I should we give people like some reflection questions just to take home with them?
Yeah, and then some time for questions.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Mm, so basically what we have already been talking about, just inviting you to take these questions home with you, like, have I enjoyed the sex that I have had so far? And if not, what needs to change for me to enjoy the sex that I want to have? Like little things like this. How do I experience pleasure? What is pleasurable to me? Like, what are the things that are pleasurable to me? And what puts me in a, like, what supports my state of being aroused and open to any type of sex, let's say? And what puts the brakes on for me? I think these are the questions that I would just give to you to take home and reflect on a little bit if you want to. Yeah.
Because ultimately, all of this comes down to like your empowerment as an individual human being. Like, I honestly don't believe that we've come onto this earth to do anything except for really get to know ourselves, to really, really get to know who we are and what we like. And sex is such a big place where we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't refine it. We don't think that we have agency or choice as to like how we get the pleasure that we need, you know? So the more that you focus on this process of who am I and what do I like, the rich of like inspiration and encouragement to just like keep going even when it feels sticky. It's really important that we do this work. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you who are joining live, you're really welcome to ask any questions that you might have. 10% battery. Well, let's see how long we go. Yeah, if there's any specific questions, like maybe there's something in your relationship or your life that feels really that we haven't spoken to yet or touched upon, or you want to get some specific advice or reflection, now's the time for that. I just thought we could have a hug break while people write their questions.
Always.
Mm.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Okay.
Mm. No question so far.
No
You
questions.
can tell them about something. How do you make that aliveness in you radiate? Welcome to Mm.
Hmm. You want to go for this, or
Mm. I've got things
I've
to
got things
say.
to say. The
I mean,
question
we can
was
both
the question was
answer it.
how do you make that aliveness in you radiate or welcome or make it welcoming to others? It just happens.
Yeah.
It just becomes what you exude out. And in this way, the more refined you get in this aliveness, the less lack you feel of like, oh, I need this type of relationship to feel safe, or I need this type of pleasure to feel like it becomes this resource that you're accessing from your own sense of self. And in that way, in that refinement process, you start to draw towards your experiences and people and things that are right for you because you're not in lack anymore. It's such a big piece of attraction, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said. And also, I think when you are feeling this aliveness and you don't feel like you need to hide it or that it's a shameful part of yourself, then it just exists in itself and does exactly what Ria said. So I think this, yeah, also seeing your own aliveness is something beautiful that doesn't need to be hidden away somewhere or that is a shameful part, but is just welcome. Like as soon as you welcome it, everyone else will feel it and it will radiate.
Because it's also not got this quality of like, it's so different from like, I'm bringing my sexual energy into this space because I need to get something from you, like an orgasm, or I need to have this release, right? That has such a pointed energy to it. This is such a different flavor of experience. It's like, in this way, I'm full and I'm connected with life. And in this connection with life, I extend that out to the world that I live in, you know? It's pretty
That's
it's changed my life
yeah,
in
it's
every
changed my
single
life.
way, prioritizing this piece of boosting my juices. So what about exercise and herbal support? I'm not a herbalist, so I definitely can't speak to like specifics for your constitution. Exercise, I would say just movement is really important.
And including your pelvis in your movement, like allowing your pelvis to just move in whatever way, like whether it's like a back and forth or like a shake or circles, whatever it is, like really alivening this
Mm.
part of your body in a free flow.
And again, have an intention when you move your body. I'm doing this to boost my libido. It can change everything just by having that framework. I'm doing this to connect with my sexual aliveness. And then just see what happens and trust the process that it's going to take you where you need to go. Dance is great for this. If you prefer workouts, try and do it with no music. Do it with a lot of breathing, do it with
Mm.
presence.
I mean, when you have chronic pain in your pelvis, this is also something like there might be tiny movements that feel okay in your pelvis. I don't know. But it doesn't have to be like all wild and free. And a lot of people, when they think about like being sexual and being in their sexuality and connected to this energy, that always looks super expansive and super big, it can also look very small and slow. It's really your expression and also the ability of your body. So feeling into like just being with your pelvis, for example, sometimes I would just sit and be there and listen. And, especially when it comes to chronic pain, like for me in my back, I would just sit there and put a hand there and really be with my back and ask it, how do you want me to show up right now? Is there anything that I can do for you? Like that I can already help in terms of chronic pain.
And even visualizing,
Yeah.
just visualizing yourself moving your pelvis. We think about, you. We might have to jump
Bless
over
you.
to your computer in a second.
Yeah.
Um, if I cut off here, we'll just jump onto a different computer, so don't worry about that. But even just visualizing the movement, visualizing this flow of energy moving, like moving you. Like we have an energy body. Imagine your energy body was moving. Use your breath. Take your breath into your pelvis. There's so many ways that we can move this energy and boost this energy without needing to be moving physically. So one question, and herbal support. Yeah, I would recommend doing some research on this. The herbal support that I've found really supportive for me has been schizandra berries. And also maca root is really good for boosting sexual vitality. So they're the things that I can think of on the top of my head. But maybe we'll get a herbalist on next week and talk about this from a herbal perspective. Um, One question that I want to talk to whilst we've still got some battery on here is
How to make your pleasure non-dependent
yes.
on others.
So somebody asked, how do you make your pleasure non-dependent on others? For example, how to continue exploring, feeling connected, even though there is no one to connect with or is available. I feel it's very difficult to make my own pleasure and the shared pleasure independent. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to? I've got.
Well, if you're ready, go for it.
Firstly, I just want to speak to the potential grief of this, of like, yeah, sometimes having a connection with another human being is very different from having a connection with ourselves. And it's a very valid, beautiful thing to want. And if it's not there and it's not available, there can be a grief there from that. So I
Mm.
just really want to acknowledge that, we can do all of this self-pleasure and still it's not exactly the same as having a partnered experience. I think they're both equal, but they're not the same. Um, and for me, what really supports me with this is remembering that I'm connected to everything. So when I'm thinking about my pleasure practice, I'm bringing in elements from nature. I'm going to go on a walk and I'm going to invite this erotic energy and this erotic pleasure into my connection with the trees, into my connection with the branches and the air. And in this way, I remember that there is something that I'm connecting with that is beyond my individual self. And whilst it's not the same as having, full blown, my battery's so gonna die, sex with a partner, it is also this meeting. There is a connection there that's happening. Let's swap.
Should we just
We're
swap?
swapping, yes. Let me make you. Because I'm currently
Recording.
recording. Need to make you the spotlight. Okay.
Okay,
We're back.
beautiful. We're back.
That was very smooth.
So smooth. Okay, do you need to? Oh, but
Oh,
you're still recording.
no, that's not it. It'll be gone from there, so it's fine.
Okay.
So,
Should I record? And then we cut it together. Edit
yeah,
it
can you
together.
do that? Sorry, everyone.
Also, oh, it's still being recorded apparently. Okay, great. Um, okay, yes. So coming back to
Yes, so it's almost like getting creative is like, what's the ways that I can think about how to connect with something that it doesn't necessarily have to be another human, like go non-human with it. Take it to the trees, take it to the forest. And again, experiment, see what's available there.
yeah, I think what you said about the grief and acknowledging that there can be grief around it is really important. And then also, um, I like to just remember that I deserve pleasure even when there's not another person there. Like, remember that my body deserves pleasure, that I deserve pleasure, that I deserve to be touched, like, even if it's just by myself. Like, what a gift that I can give that to myself. And remembering that, and from that moment approaching it and really being open to all of the emotions that can come up during the practice, because yeah, there might be grief, there might be joy, there might be silliness, there might be anger also, or frustration. So being with that, I think it's a great gift that you can give to yourself. And as soon as I understood it as such, it gave me way more pleasure in being just with myself and not being in a relationship or not having the availability of other people to play with.
Yeah. And another thing that I sometimes like to do is like invoke your inner lover. Like imagine that your hand is a lover's hand.
Yes.
Imagine that you're coming into connection. Like, could you imagine your own self penetrating your own self? We can use this imagery and this sort of invocation to call in that experience with ourselves. Beautiful. Any more questions? Any more questions?
And also, just one last thing. When you're touching yourself, for example, switching it up between like being the person that touches and being the person that is touched. Because it feels different, like
Mm.
playing with this, like, okay, now I'm the hand, I am touching. And then I'm switching to, okay, now I'm the arm and I'm being touched. And how different does it feel? Are there different sensations coming up? Like, there's so much room to play with yourself.
Mm. Okay, 2-day workshop in Berlin, the 28th of February to the 1st of March, which is just a weekend. Have you got the link to that? We're gonna pop the link in the chat because we've got a deal on for one more day. But it's called Sensual by Nature, and really it's an amazing way to engage with your body and your sensuality outside of these boxes, right? If we're feeling squashed and disconnected in our relationship to self and body and other, this is real medicine for that. So it would be amazing if you wanted to join us. Um, But otherwise, thank you so much for joining, speaking of sexuality, and I hope that it's been fruitful and supportive for you. Your questions are always welcome, and I'll be popping this on YouTube in the coming weeks, so you can always revisit if needed. Anything you'd like to share, Cleo, before we close?
Just thank you for having me and thank you all for listening. And yeah, as Ria said, I hope that this was insightful to you and that you can take something home from this. Um, yeah, I would love to do this every week. Thank you
You can
so
definitely
much.
come back, Cleo.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, I
Oh,
sent the link in the chat if you want to check it out.
thank you so much, everyone. And may your erotic aliveness benefit all beings everywhere. It's fine.
No, no, just let me do it. It's in German.